Hi and hello. Welcome to my newest screencast. Today I want to show you adaptive cards templating. The templating itself as a technology that I will be talking about is nothing that much new for adaptive cards because the first time I saw it was around, I think, August or July 2019. Back in 2019, what was already present was just at the very beginning of a templating language. And today, when we're talking about the templating in adaptive cards, we should be thinking about three pillars. The first one is actually this templating language that I will show you in just a while. The second one is templating SDK. That is, as you probably realized, dedicated mostly for developers who can implement or use this SDK along with Adaptive Cards SDK in their applications and make their designs, their solutions even more flexible. And lastly, the newest addition to the templating is templating service that I will be talking about at the very end. Now, why templating? Imagine you're creating an adaptive card and you'd like to put a dynamic variables or values inside of it. And of course, when you're working as a developer or if you're trying to design your card in Flow, you can obviously do that by simply getting those dynamic values from your application or from your Flow and then putting them in the JSON of your adaptive cards so that once they're generated, they will have these values present, and under other circumstances, in other cases, the values will be different. But what if you would like to just create like one single adaptive card model or design and then put their values depending on rules, depending on some environmental variables or presence, or if you'd like to have just a regular template that can save somewhere in your repository and then anyone in the organization can just take it and use it. So with all that I've said previously, it is not possible because if you use an adaptive card code and you put it in your Flow and then you put dynamic values inside of it, then you still somehow hard code those values into this design. But if you have a template where you have placeholders, where you have all the language that manages the template, that manages parts of the adaptive card, then this gives you a little bit more of the flexibility and this possibility to create adaptive card once and then reuse it for different scenarios, for different data, and you don't have to actually rebuild it every time to get the new data, to change the data. So the point is that you just create an adaptive card template and you provide data separately. Both are JSON. The data, adaptive card design, is a JSON. So let me show you how it works. Basically, when you open the adaptive card designer right now, this is now working a little bit differently. So previously, we had here this very common adaptive card with matte hitting their picture and name. Today, we have something different. So you can see that there are those curly brackets, there are some literals inside, some strings. There is a new window called Sample Data Editor. Now, how all this works together? Basically, what you have here is this templating language. So these are the placeholders that basically directly refers to keys that you can find in the data. So once I switch from design mode that I have right now turned on into the preview mode, you'll notice that those placeholders are going to be replaced with the data from the JSON on the right bottom, in the right bottom corner. And now you can see this adaptive card that we are always very familiar already with, right? So that's it. All right, but what actually gives us this templating language? What can we do with that? Well, actually, quite a lot. Although, remember, this is still in preview. So some features are already working, others are not. However, Matt's team is still working hard on delivering everything. So in Q2 2020, if you look on the roadmap, then the templating language should be done, should be released. Right, so what do we have else? When you go to the documentation and open templating language section, you're going to find out what is actually available right now. The first thing are the binding scopes. So this is something that helps you to bind the data within the template with the data source. So for example, if you want to put a specific section of data inside your card, you just put the data and then you bind values to this data like this, right? And then you just use the values from this specific data area. Another thing is repeating items. So imagine you have a table data, a table object, and you would like to dynamically generate rows. Of course, you have fact set, you have column set, you have all those containers that you can use. Also, you have elements. But if you have a table data that you just can't say how many rows it has, that wouldn't be a good idea to just multiply those elements by your own and then put the different values in each of the row. It is better, obviously, to have something that does it dynamically. And for this purpose, we have these repeating items, and that works already. Next, we have functions. We have functions for strings, for numbers, for dates, and conditional. As you can see, strings are partially working, just substring. Numbers are not working at all. Date functions, although it says that formatting is not working, formatting already works, at least a little. Next, we have conditional functions, we have data manipulations, and in the end, we have conditional layout as well. So what I want to show you right now is just a very small and simple example of an adaptive card that I've created. It is an adaptive card of an example I'm using in Power Automate. So that is a part of an onboarding process card that is being sent to IT department, and it has just a very small data. So what it expects is that this information in a fact set block container are going to be replaced with information about an actual employee. So once I switch into preview, it has to be really case sensitive, right? So you can see that these variables are matched. However, I have also a more advanced template. Now look at that. First thing important about that is that here I have data put as one of the attributes of the JSON of the card of an adaptive card. So it is not separately, it is just put inside. This is this binding scope, right? Data. Now what I want to do is to send this adaptive card to a Teams and to provide all the information about the invoice that has just been received. So that the approver is going to have all the information about the issuer, about the invoice details, and information about the positions, about what was sold by the invoice. Now, what is also important, what I want to have is that if the value brutto is, for example, higher than 2,000, let's say dollars, I want to display this value in red, otherwise green. Also, I want this block, I want this text to be present only when the total number, so this value here, is going to be higher than 10,000. So this is conditional block in adaptive card. This is that point, conditional layout. The one about the brutto value is, let me just find it. Here is conditional formatting. So it also says that if brutto number is going to be more than 10,000, use attention color, otherwise good color. Above here in this fact set container, you can see I'm using the date formatter. So I'm using the invoice date and due date, and they will be both formatted using the short pattern. Now, once I turn the preview mode, you can see that all the information has been replaced. The table built from column set and text blocks inside has been generated. The rows have been multiplied. The warning is present because the total value is higher than 10,000. Important thing is that today we don't have yet expressions or calculations. So for example, I'm not able to sum values. I'm not able to count values. This information, these kind of functions are not yet present. Now, if I change, where do I have it? Yeah, the total number, I have to have like two. First one is for the display, the string, and then the second one is an integer used for calculations. But if I change it to just 1365, you can see that this block, this text block, has disappeared because it is not meeting the condition. So this is actually what we can do with the templating, right? I have just a JSON, I have my adaptive card as a template, and now I can reuse it for many scenarios. What is also important is that you can create like your own repository and store these adaptive cards there and then just use them. Now, what I just wanted to show you and what I wanted to underline is, although it would be really cool to be able to post this adaptive card to Teams, but because adaptive cards templating language is still in preview, it doesn't work. So what we can do today with templating in Microsoft Teams and adaptive cards is just a very simple replacement of those string values. So we can actually post a string, we can use it, but we can't use the table data, we can't use rules, we can't use conditions. These parts of templating language are yet not working in Microsoft Teams. Now, what I wanted to show you is that we already can use templating language in Power Automate. There are two new actions available from January this year. When you go into adaptive cards, or when you type in adaptive cards, you can find two new actions that reads post an adaptive card to Teams and wait, or post an adaptive card to channel and wait. I have chosen the adaptive card post to channel, and it looks like this. However, the very important thing is that if you decide to go into all Power Automate settings and you decide to turn on experimental features, you will notice that the action design is changed, and now you are already able to use the very basics of templating language. So these keys and values are actually the keys and values that you can find in the data structure used by the language. Plus, you have the built-in designer here that you can simply use to design your card inside the Power Automate, so you don't have to navigate away and then go back. Now, I have here a fact set container that contains 4 variables, and then if I'd like to provide values for them, simply what I would have to do is to provide here the first name, then the last name, and so on, right? So, and then just simply put in the values that I have returned by the SharePoint. So how this actually works, you can find out in my previous video, where I'm actually demoing those new actions, how they work and what they do. I am not just, I don't want to lose time now right on this, because we are talking about the templating itself, not about the new actions, but it does work. Now, so this is about the templating. Now you can use it in your own applications, you can use it in adaptive cards, in Teams. However, in Teams it is limited. As said, I will now not jump back to the SDK. I will not talk about the SDK because I have no idea about programming. I'll now jump directly to templating service. Now, this is a very cool idea because it brings you a mechanism that actually can return you a template for the provided JSON data. So imagine you have, for example, you are calling a Graph API, right? You're calling a Graph API, and in Graph API, you are returning a JSON that you would like to find, that you would like to present already in an adaptive card approach. So what you could do is you can, of course, design your own template, but what you can as well do is to check if there is maybe a template already available. So there is already a GitHub repository created by Matt Hittinger, and it is dedicated for templates. It is currently already open. It's not a private one, so actually anyone can already share their own templates. The point is that today you can find templates for finance, for the GitHub data, for Graph API, for some other endpoints. And how it works: first, you provide to the mechanism that I'll just show you the JSON data, the JSON structure of what you want to visualize. Then it gets into the server. On the server, Luis, so the Language Understanding Intelligence Service, is trying to find the most matching template if there is any template existing. Now, for every template, it somehow suits the provided data. It is calculated the confidence. So how much is it proper for this kind of a template, for this kind of a data? And then it returns you a list of found templates with a confidence, so that you can then take the one that has the highest confidence and use it to visualize your data. For example, if you've opened the profile JSON template, you can find that you can see that there is already an adaptive card with the last name, with the placeholders. And then if I copy it and use it here in the designer, if I copy it and paste it to the designer, and then switch to preview mode, you can see that it's very, very simple adaptive card. Now, the very cool thing is that if you go to Graph Explorer and you switch this small button preview, you will notice that there is already adaptive cards tab here. And then if I go and see how my profile data looks like, and then go to adaptive cards, see this fetching. If the template is found, it is automatically being replaced. The data is being replaced. Now this fetching thing means that it is contacting the adaptive cards templating service and is waiting for the response if there is any matching template. So let me show you. First, what you have to do is to check if the template exists. So there is this URL, templates adaptivecards.io/find, where you have to provide the data. So you take the data, you paste it, and then you say send. And now Luis is checking if any of the existing templates is matching the given data. So yes, there is the one, graphmicrosoft.com profile JSON. Now you have to take this template URL and then post it along with the data to templates adaptivecards.io/the template URL. When you post it, you are given the generated adaptive card filled in with the data. Let me show you. That's it, right? It's generated, it's filled in. However, if instead of doing a post, you do a get, you're just being returned a very, very working template, the raw template with no data. So how cool is that? This is a templating service. It's using Luis and artificial intelligence to find a template for you, for your data. Right. The point about the template repository is that at this certain moment of time, it's very community driven. But idea is that maybe at a certain moment of time, those repositories could be a company, like dedicated for each company. So each company could create their own repository and put their own templates there, so that if employee would like to use an adaptive card or would like to visualize the company related data using the predefined user interface and user experience, then they would simply need to find the matching template and to use it, so that they will not really have to focus on designing cards, but they will just need to find the right template. So that's really cool, and it will give you, your company, quite a lot of power on keeping all the information in a consistent look and feel. The last thing I want to show you is the roadmap for adaptive cards. There is this page that is both like a backlog and the roadmap. So what is important right now is that we have the templating service in preview. We have also templating language in the preview. In Q2 2020, the templating service and templating functions, templating language will be supported, will be supplemented by the functions and as well by some other capabilities that are already described in documentation but are marked as not working yet. Once templating language goes from preview into GA, I hope that as well Microsoft Teams will implement fully the SDK, the templating SDK, and therefore we will be able to generate really cards using dynamic data with no further programming, with no putting those placeholders from previous actions in the next in the JSON code. We will be only able to use the adaptive cards templating language. All right, so that is, I think, everything I wanted to show you, I wanted to share with you. I hope you really found it useful, and I hope you're as much excited about the templating language, about the templating service as I am. It really brings a lot of flexibility to create adaptive cards very easily and then reuse them fast. So it will hopefully save you lots of time. If you have any questions, if you would like to discuss the adaptive cards topics with me, if you'd like to discuss anything about what I'm doing, what I'm writing about, simply reach me out on my Twitter or using the contact form on my blog. Thank you very much for watching.